You are listening to Sales Optex. Visit us at salesoptex.com.
So, if you are a sales leader, you're probably driven by one number, the top line, revenue.
Right.
You live and breathe quotas, and you measure success by how much money you bring in.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the tension. If you're relying on gut feeling or just that big top-line number, you are actively missing the critical financial language that, frankly, the rest of the C-suite is using to evaluate your team.
And you might be running toward a number that actually costs the company money.
Exactly.
That tension where revenue is celebrated but profit is ignored, that is the root of so much unsustainable business. We often say revenue is vanity, profit is sanity.
Profit is sanity. That's what keeps the lights on.
It's what allows for true long-term growth.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we're taking the most fundamental financial report, the profit and loss statement, and we're sort of transforming it.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving it out of the finance department's cower and putting it directly into your hands as a strategic roadmap. For sales excellence.
This isn't just about reading the numbers.
No, it's about learning the secret language of profitability.
And our mission today is really a shortcut. We want to give you the most important nuggets from this dense source material to understand which P&L metrics, the ones often overlooked by sales teams, give you the clearest view of your team's efficiency, its true performance.
And most importantly,
Where the highest margin growth opportunities actually lie.
we're basically changing the question from, did we hit our sales number, to something more like, did we hit our sales number profitably and sustainably?
And that shift in focus from just activity-based selling to data-driven strategic alignment with financial goals, that's the cornerstone of scalable growth. You stop being just a revenue generator.
And you become what?
You become a core partner in the company's financial success.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the P&L structure itself. For anyone who maybe just sees this as a document that the accountants sign off on, let's establish what it is.
It's the ultimate story of your business over a specific period.
Right. It shows the journey of a dollar from the moment a customer pays it until the company finally gets to keep a tiny fraction of it.
And that journey is crucial because it immediately exposes all the friction points. For sales leaders, there are 6 essential landmarks on this map that they absolutely must understand.
Okay, give us the big 6, but let's talk about them from a sales strategy perspective, not just from an accounting one.
Absolutely. First, of course, is revenue, the celebrated top line, total sales generated.
This is the easy one. Did the calls, the pitches, did they work? Yes.
Exactly. But second is the cost of goods sold, or COGS.
Okay.
This is the direct cost materials, labor, manufacturing overhead. It's the cost of fulfilling the promise you just sold. A savvy sales leader knows that every dollar here is a dollar not available for profit.
And that's the immediate link to number 3, the gross profit margin. This is really the first critical indicator of efficiency, right?
Correct. Gross margin shows how effective you are at producing or sourcing the product relative to its price. If COGS rises and you haven't adjusted your price, that margin shrinks.
It's the early warning sensor.
It is. It signals immediate pricing failure long before the overall company profit is even affected.
So once we have that gross profit, we move into the running costs of the business. Number 4, operating expenses.
Often called SG&A, selling, general, and administrative costs. This is the big bucket of things not directly tied to making the product, but essential for running the business.
Like salaries, rent, marketing campaigns.
Travel. All of it. These need continuous scrutiny.
Hold on. You're telling me that a sales VP needs to worry about things like rent and, general administrative salaries? Isn't that CFO territory?
That's a great question.
How does tracking those expenses directly help my sales team hit their quota next month?
It speaks to the strategic shift. If your sales team cost commissions, travel, training are too high relative to the revenue they bring in, you're diluting the company's ability to operate. Once you subtract those operating expenses, you get number 5, operating income.
Or profit.
Or profit, right. This is the profit derived purely from core business activities. It's the clearest indicator of how well your primary business model is working.
Before you get to things like interest or taxes.
Exactly. And finally, number 6, the net profit, the bottom line. This is the ultimate residual profit after all expenses are subtracted. It's the measure of overall financial health. If you can't look at this number and see a clear percentage, your sales efforts, however voluminous, are not translating into company wealth.
That structure is the skeleton of the business. But here's where it gets really interesting for strategy. Sales leaders can't afford to just stop at the top line.
Or just look at the bottom line.
Exactly. We need to drill down into the ratios and growth rates that predict future performance. We need that aha moment that transforms a reactive approach into a proactive one.
Absolutely. The raw numbers are static. The derived metrics are dynamic. They offer operational insights. Let's slow down here and look at 8 essential indicators.
Okay.
We start by moving beyond just revenue and looking at the revenue growth rate. A company can sell $1 billion worth of goods, but if their growth rate is 1% and the market is growing at 10%.
Then that high number is actually masking a major strategic failure.
Precisely. A declining rate signals market saturation or a desperate need for a new product line. It's not just about how fast you're going, but whether you're keeping up.
That makes perfect sense. What's next?
Let's revisit the gross profit margin. As we said, it's your early warning sensor. If this is trending down, it means one of two things. Either your costs are rising or your sales team is selling at lower prices.
Because of competitive pressure or maybe just poor negotiation?
Exactly. If your team is aggressively discounting just to hit volume, they are systematically destroying the margin.
Okay, so now let's talk about efficiency in just running the show.
Yeah, we look at the operating expenses ratio, your OPEX relative to total revenue. If this ratio is creeping up, it means the costs of selling, like that huge marketing campaign or the recent hiring spree, are consuming too much revenue. It highlights your cost management efficiency.
And linking that back to core performance, what does the operating income margin tell us?
It measures how effective you are at converting sales into true operating profits. If your team is hitting huge sales targets but the operating income margin is low, it means the sales activities themselves are so expensive.
The travel, the high commissions.
That they are eroding the profit before taxes are even calculated.
So if that's the operational health check, then the net profit margin must be the final verdict.
It is the gold standard. This is the final profit percentage after all costs. It confirms that you're not just generating sales, you're selling smarter.
Now we step outside the strict lines of the P&L statement itself and connect these financial outcomes to actual sales behavior. We have 3 crucial efficiency metrics left.
First, the critical pairing. Customer acquisition cost, CR, versus customer lifetime value, CLV.
This ratio is non-negotiable.
Okay.
If your CAC is high compared to the total value the customer brings over their lifespan, your sales tactics are simply too expensive. That high cost shows up in your operating expenses, dragging down your profit margins.
So you need to focus on lower cost channels or increasing retention.
Yes. Second, sales pipeline velocity. This measures the speed at which leads move from initial contact to a closed deal.
A slow velocity would signal bottlenecks, right? Maybe too much internal sign-off or just poor qualification.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that translates directly into higher costs. Capital is tied up in a lengthy process, and your sales team is spending too much time on low-probability deals.
And finally, the ghost in the machine, churn rate. It looks like a customer service problem, but it hits the P&L hard. So hard, because high churn means you are constantly feeding the machine with new, expensive customers instead of retaining profitable existing ones. You sold it, but was it a good fit? The cost of replacing those lost customers significantly impacts your net profit margin.
That collective insight is so powerful. But here's the warning we found echoed in the source material. You can run yourself out of business while celebrating big sales numbers if you focus solely on revenue growth.
Without ever considering profitability, you have to know the cost of the sale.
Right. It's that famous analogy of the company that sells 1 million units but spends $1,050,000 to do it.
It looks successful on paper until you get to the bottom line.
So let's talk strategy. It's not enough to look at the total revenue number. We need to analyze where the money is coming from.
This is where sales leaders become truly strategic. Revenue streams must be segmented by product lines, customer segments, geographic regions. Because you need to know which streams are high-margin generators and which are low-margin anchors dragging the ship down. You can't allocate sales resources effectively otherwise.
So in the P&L context, what makes a revenue stream good?
Predictability and stability. Recurring revenue streams, subscriptions, managed services, long-term contracts, they provide a predictable cash flow that reduces financial volatility.
And sales leaders need to prioritize those relationships.
They have to. Shifting incentive structures from one-time massive deals to long-term recurring value, that stability is gold when you look at it through a P&L lens.
And this segmentation has to be constantly integrated with the P&L.
Absolutely. If product line A is growing 30% year over year, but its associated COGS is growing 40%, well, that growth is actively diluting your overall profitability.
Which means you need to immediately reevaluate pricing or cost controls for that specific line.
Instantly.
That takes us directly back to COGS.
Yep.
I want to highlight the direct impact on sales performance here. COGS isn't just for accounting. It fundamentally influences your pricing and your market competitiveness.
Think of a common scenario. A global shortage causes the cost of a key raw material to spike. If your sales team isn't immediately aware of this spike in COGS.
They're signing deals based on outdated pricing models.
Right. Every single transaction closed at the old price is now costing the company profit. The deals are getting less profitable every single day.
So the actionable insight here is about breaking down silos.
Yeah.
Sales leaders have to mandate a constant, rapid-fire communication loop with production and finance.
It's non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Pricing is tethered to the reality of the supply chain. If that tether snaps, your margins just disappear.
Okay, let's move on to managing the other set of costs. Operating expenses. This is the area where sales leaders often feel they have the least control, but where strategic management can yield the biggest results.
And it's about optimization, not just cutting. For instance, reviewing your marketing spend.
Right.
Instead of blanket cuts, you focus on the high ROI channels identified by that operating expenses ratio. If direct mail marketing costs $5,000 but only drives $10,000 in traceable revenue, you cut it.
But if your digital channel costs $5,000 and drives 50,
You double down. You cut the fat, but you feel the muscle. We have to monitor that OPEX ratio constantly. If it spikes, it demands looking at vendor contracts, streamlining software, or tightening travel policies.
But you mentioned that not all operating expenses are bad. Some are actually strategic investments for long-term gain. How do we distinguish waste from investment?
That's the strategic nuance. For example, investing in high-quality employee training, that's an operating expense. It increases short-term costs.
Sure.
But the return is often higher pipeline velocity, better conversion rates, and increased long-term profitability. You have to weigh the immediate P&L hit against the projected quantifiable benefits. Waste is the cost that yields no return. Investment is the cost that produces a leveraged return.
Let's focus on that leverage point gross margin improvement. The source material emphasizes that even a single percentage point change here can have a dramatic impact on overall profitability.
This is where sales strategy really shines. If your margin is declining, your analysis of the P&L must lead to specific action. Is it supply chain disruptions? Then sales needs to hold the line on price. Is it aggressive pricing pressure from competitors? Then you need to demonstrate value, not just cut price.
And on the sales side, that means being intelligent about the product mix.
Absolutely. Sales leaders must become champions of product mix optimization. Incentivize and prioritize the sale of high-margin products.
Why spend valuable sales time on a product with a 10% margin when you could be selling one with a 40% margin?
Exactly. And at the same time, the company has to proactively identify and maybe even discontinue products that are just consistent low-margin drains on resources.
So bringing this all together, we loop back to the ultimate metric, the net profit margin. Gross margin is about making the product efficiently. Net profit margin is about ensuring your entire sales operation is efficient.
And that it turns every dollar of revenue into actual residual profit. It measures how well the company converts revenue into profit. The sales contribution here isn't just about volume, it's about efficiency, strategic pricing, and minimizing all those associated costs.
Marketing, travel, compensation.
All of it. If your sales team is expensive, they need to be profoundly effective.
Okay, so we have the data, we have the metrics, but the final and most common challenge is the execution gap.
Right.
Why do these data-driven initiatives fail even with clear P&L insights?
Poor implementation. The transition from insight to action is where strategy dies. We need to be concrete. First, prioritize actionable insights.
Don't try to fix everything at once.
No, focus on the 2 or 3 most impactful areas exposed by the P&L, the sharpest decline in a key revenue stream, or the largest spike in an operating cost.
And then?
Second, develop a clear action plan. Outline specific strategies. If the P&L shows COGS is rising, your plan must include directives like renegotiate supplier X contract by month end with a clear owner and a timeline.
And if the sales team doesn't understand the why, the plan is dead on arrival.
Which is the third step. Communicate effectively. All stakeholders, from the junior rep to the C-suite, must understand the rationale for the change and their specific roles. Alignment is everything.
And it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Not at all. That's the final step. Measure and adjust. Implementation is continuous. Use dashboards and analytics to monitor progress against those P&L objectives in real time. If renegotiating the supplier contract only yields a 1% cost decrease, but you needed 5%.
You have to immediately adjust your pricing strategy to compensate.
You have to. This proactive P&L-informed approach ensures sales efforts contribute meaningfully to the company's ultimate financial success.
That is the perfect summary. The P&L is truly a GPS for sales strategy. It allows leaders to shift from reactive selling, just chasing the number, to driving data-driven, highly profitable growth.
By placing efficiency and cost control on the exact same footing as revenue generation, true success requires aligning every single sales effort with broader business financial objectives. Your ultimate measures of success are no longer just revenue, but net profit margin and operating income margin. That confirms your growth isn't hollow.
It's financially sound.
Exactly.
It's a powerful realization that turns a sales leader into a business owner. So, if managing COGS and operating expenses is about optimizing your current resources, here's our final provocative thought for you to chew on. How can the fundamental insight you just gained from P&L analysis, specifically understanding segment profitability and the operating expenses ratio, be used right now to design your next high-margin, scalable product line? How can historical expense data predict the future cost of innovation, helping you budget for profitability before you even draw the first sketch of the product? Go deep on that one.